You spent your whole life living for others, only to end up feeling like a fading shadow in that very life. Old age doesn't send a warning, and when it arrives, you're hit with a painful truth. All the sacrifices you made didn't guarantee you'd be loved. No one says it out loud, but everyone feels it. You wait for a call that never comes, a thank you that never arrives, a moment of care that only exists in your memory. And then you ask yourself, so what the hell did I live for? This isn't a comforting video. This is a wake-up call. If you're tired of living for everyone else and you're starting to crave a life that's actually your own, then you need to watch this to the end. Because this isn't just your story. This is a silent truth an entire generation is carrying. If this is your first time visiting the channel, hit subscribe and like so you don't miss out on exciting upcoming content. You're not suffering because others changed. You're suffering because you refuse to accept that they did. You've spent your life giving. You gave too much. And now when you need a hug, a phone call, a thank you, what you get in return is silence, a cold indifference like you never even existed in their lives. And yes, it chokes you up. But what's suffocating you isn't their lack of care, it's your expectations. Stoicism says, don't hope the world will bend to your will. Learn to adjust yourself to live in harmony with it. But you didn't. You didn't want to accept that what you give isn't guaranteed to come back. You kept clinging to a fantasy that your children would always be grateful, that your family would always put you first, that life would eventually reward your goodness. But life doesn't work like that. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't reward virtue. It just moves on, relentlessly, without pause and without waiting for anyone. The more you cling to who you used to be, the strong father, the selfless mother, the provider husband, the sacrificing wife, the more you'll be haunted by the emptiness when those roles are no longer needed. And it's that attachment, not the circumstances, that's the real source of your pain. Here's the brutal truth. No one lives to make you happy. Your kids aren't here to make up for your past. Life has no obligation to comfort you just because you were kind. If you keep expecting that, you'll keep being disappointed. Because people are busy living their own lives, they don't have time to live according to yours. Stoicism doesn't teach you to let go because it's easy. It teaches you to let go because it's the only way to be free. When you stop demanding, only then can you truly love. When you don't need someone to call, then every call, if it comes, becomes a gift, not a debt. When you're no longer waiting for recognition, then every act of kindness becomes a choice, not an investment. If you're suffering because your kids grew distant, your friends stopped checking in, or the people you once cared for turned their backs, face this truth head-on. You can't control other people's hearts, but you can control yourself. Attachment is the rope you tied around your own neck, and you have the power to cut it. Not to become cold, but to finally breathe. To live lightly, like someone who's realized everything comes and goes, and nothing is truly yours forever, except you. You've lived your whole life like a lender with no contract, and now you're angry because the borrowers didn't return what you gave. But here's the truth. No one ever promised to give you anything back. Most of us live with an invisible contract in our heads. If I'm good, others will be grateful. If I sacrifice, they'll return the favor. If I give my all, they'll never leave me. But no one ever signed that contract. No one committed to live by the script you wrote. And when they don't follow it, you feel betrayed. But in reality, you've betrayed yourself. Because you placed your trust in something that never existed. Stoicism teaches, do the right thing not for the reward. Do it because it's the path you choose, not because others are obligated to respond. But can you look in the mirror and admit that? You think you're being noble, but the truth is, you're negotiating. You're waiting to be paid back in affection, recognition, gratitude, or at least not being forgotten. You're living like life is a savings account. The more love you deposit, the more happiness you'll earn in return. But then you realize this isn't a bank. It's the ocean. What you throw in gets swept away. And if you don't know how to warm yourself, you'll freeze to death in the sea of expectations. Love doesn't guarantee love in return. Kindness doesn't guarantee remembrance. Sacrifice doesn't guarantee honor. That's the truth. And the more you resist it, the more you sentence yourself to suffering. But don't get it twisted. Letting go of the illusion doesn't mean becoming heartless. It means you give because you choose to, not because you're waiting on a return. You love without keeping score. You help without keeping receipts. You live true to yourself, and you let others live true to who they are. The person who once held you close may now turn their back. The one who called you their lifeline might forget you exist. That doesn't diminish your worth unless you measure yourself by their response. Freedom begins the moment you put down the scale. Stop measuring who loves you, who remembers, who's grateful. The more you measure, the more you suffer. The more you demand, the more you feel deprived. Accept that no one owes you anything, not even your children, not even your spouse, not even those who once benefited from your sacrifices. They may remember, or they may not. They may honor it, or forget completely. But that doesn't make your actions meaningless, unless you turn them into a failed bet. It's time to cancel that silent contract. Rip it up. Set yourself free. You don't need anyone's signature to live a full life anymore. Real stories that reveal this truth. You once believed that if you just did the right thing, did enough, gave more, everything would turn out fine in the end. Your wife would appreciate you. Your kids would admire you. People would see you as a model man. But here's the reality. One day, you come home and realize you're living with strangers. The kids no longer ask for your opinion. The woman who used to hold your hand at night now only talks about bills and responsibilities. And you, though still paying the mortgage and showing up to every family meeting, no longer exist in their eyes. Frank is one of those men. A former Marine, now a senior manager at a logistics company in Texas. His whole life was the picture of a traditional man. Endure, carry the load, never complain. When the kids were little, he worked 60 hours a week so his wife could stay home full-time. He gave up his passion for trucking to stay close, quit the gym, stopped seeing his friends, because now it's time to put family first. Now the kids are in college, the wife has her own job, her own life, and Frank sits in the garage every evening realizing he doesn't know what to do except work. In Manchester, England, there's David, a self-made entrepreneur who opened 3 sports stores by age 28. Now he's 55, financially secure after selling them all. But he admits something chilling. I have everything, except the feeling of being needed. His wife tells him to just relax. His son says, "You've done enough, take a break." But no one seems to grasp the core truth. Men don't want to retire. They want to matter. They need to feel like they count. And when that's taken away, they begin to die, not physically, but spiritually. Frank and David are just 2 men, but they represent millions. Men who once carried the whole family, who were once the anchor, the provider, the symbol of stability, and now they quietly fade into the background, unnoticed. If you're living in that state, this is your moment to face a hard truth. No one's coming to save you from feeling invisible, except you. And you can't wait for someone else to hand your worth back to you. You have to take it back, not by shouting, but by rediscovering what you once loved, but left behind too long. Your passion, your strength, your fire, and the pride of a man who once was a warrior, and will be a warrior again, but this time for himself. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful. It's the best way to support me in creating more valuable content. No one owes you a happy life, and no one is obligated to make your old age feel meaningful. If you keep sitting around waiting for people to remember you, call you, invite you to dinner, or check in on your health, you will slowly die in disappointment. Not because they're cruel, but because it's not their job. They have their own lives, their own burdens, their own fatigue and crises, just like you did when you were younger. They don't have the strength to live their life and carry your loneliness too. And the truth is, they're not supposed to. The real issue is that you've handed over all your energy to others for far too long. You've lived like a pitcher that's always pouring for others to drink, but never once thought about refilling yourself. You did it out of duty, out of love, out of instinct. That deserves respect. But if you don't stop at some point to listen to yourself, you'll end up in a numb, hollow state. No goals, no passion, no feeling of being alive. You wake up early for no reason. You wait for the kids or grandkids to call, but don't even know what you'll do with the rest of the day if they don't. That's how many people die while their bodies are still breathing. Old age is not the time to chase others. It's the time to return to yourself. This is the moment when you can and must reclaim the energy you've drained for things that no longer belong to you. Sit down and ask yourself, what used to make me happy when I was young, but I've forgotten? A hobby? A small dream? Something that once made you feel like yourself? Nothing is ever too late, as long as you're still breathing. No one said you have to live the rest of your life like a silent shadow. You can reignite yourself if you stop waiting for permission to live. Don't wait for someone to give you time. Take it. Don't wait for someone to pull you out of sadness. Walk out on your own. Do something small, just for you, without needing anyone to notice. Write again. Sing again. Start walking. Buy a few old books. Tend to your backyard garden. What you need is not validation. What you need is the feeling that every remaining day is still worth living. Energy won't magically return to you. You have to call it back with your own will. As long as you keep blaming others for your lack of joy, you're still playing the victim. But if you dare to take full responsibility for every moment you've got left, then even if there are only a few years remaining, you can still live like a free human being, not a lost soul in the very house you built. The older you get, the more you realize this. Not everything needs to be said, and not every battle is worth stepping into. Sometimes staying silent isn't weakness. It's understanding. Understanding the nature of speaking up, that most words are spoken to satisfy the ego, not to truly change anything. You used to try explaining yourself. You tried making others understand you. You argued, thinking that if you were clear enough, they'd finally get it. But eventually, you realized some people listen just to argue, not to understand. Some conversations, no matter how much truth or logic you bring, will be twisted into whatever narrative they want to believe. And you got tired. Tired of shouting into a void. Tired of chasing validation from people who never really cared. In Stoic philosophy, silence isn't cowardice. It's control. It's choosing to conserve your energy instead of wasting it on things that don't matter. You no longer care about being right, being better, being recognized. You choose silence not because you have nothing to say, but because you've realized some things are best kept for yourself. They no longer need to be validated. Silence is also a way to protect your dignity. In a world where everyone wants to talk, wants to be heard, the one who knows when to be silent holds the real power. They don't need to prove themselves because they already know who they are. They don't need to win an argument because they no longer live to win against others. They live to keep peace within. Sometimes silence is a gift you give to yourself. When you don't react to your children's indifference, when you don't respond to a disrespectful comment, when you don't feel the need to speak of your losses just to earn someone's pity, that's when you're truly strong, because you no longer need to be understood to feel your own worth. Old age is not a time to prove anything anymore. It's the time for deep simplification. Less talk, less conflict, less need to be something in others' eyes. The fewer the words, the more space you have to feel your own presence. And sometimes that silence becomes the loudest thing in your life. One of the greatest illusions people carry through life is the belief that they can control others. You once believed that if you were kind enough, sacrificed enough, gave your all, then the people around you would live the way you hoped. They would be grateful. They would stay. They would behave properly. They would grow into who you imagined they'd be. But eventually, you realized they still left, still acted out, still lived their own way, despite everything you did. The older you get, the more you must accept this. No one belongs to you. No one exists to make you happy. No one is obligated to shape their life to match the vision you had for them. Even the people you love the most, you can't keep them by your side forever. Can't force them to behave right. Can't squeeze your life experience into their lessons. Everyone must walk their own path. Some lessons can't be taught, some falls can't be prevented, and some truths they must face on their own. Letting go of control doesn't mean detachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring or retreat from your loved ones. It simply means you stop thinking you can change them with advice, with orders, with constant intervention. You're present, but you don't dominate. You love, but you don't cling. You help, but you don't impose. That is the most mature and painful kind of love. To love without possession. Maybe you were the one holding everything together. At home, nothing moved without your say. The kids followed your lead. You thought, if I let go, everything will fall apart. But one day, you have to face the truth. You no longer have the strength to hold it all. And more importantly, you no longer need to. Everyone must carry their own share of life. If you keep trying to control, not only will you burn out, you'll rob others of their chance to grow. Control, at its core, is a form of fear. You fear losing connection, fear being left behind, fear that if you don't hold on, everything will slip away. But the more you grip, the more tension you feel. The more you cling, the more pain you invite. At some point, you must learn to let go. Not because you stopped loving, but because you've matured enough to understand that real love doesn't need chains. Letting go is a conscious act. It's not failure. It's a deliberate choice to live lighter, freer, and more authentically. When you stop forcing life to bend to your will, you'll finally see its beauty as it is. There's something people carry almost their entire lives without ever realizing it. The hunger for recognition. Even when you've crossed into your 60s or 70s, even after fulfilling your duties, enduring losses, and making sacrifices no one ever fully saw, deep down, you still crave to hear someone say, "Dad, you were amazing. Mom, you're the strongest woman I know. Without you, we wouldn't be who we are today." And when those words don't come, or come too rarely, you feel a void. You feel overlooked, slighted, maybe even bitter. You look back on your life and realize you lived it for others. So why is it, in the end, no one seems to remember? No one mentions you in stories, at dinners, during reunions. You begin to feel like you never really existed, or like your existence wasn't important enough to be acknowledged. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why do you need that so badly? Stoicism teaches that if you live for recognition, you've handed the power to define your worth over to others. And if your value depends on someone's emotions, opinions, or memory, then one day, when they're busy, when they change, or when they're simply no longer around, you'll collapse. Not because they left you, but because you had nothing inside to lift yourself up. Validation isn't wrong, but if you've spent your entire life waiting for it, trying to prove your worth, becoming the version of yourself that's easiest to love, admire, or respect, then you've lived a borrowed life. And old age is the point where roles stop mattering. It strips you of every title. No longer the brilliant doctor, the devoted teacher, the ideal father, the selfless mother. All that's left is one bare question. Who are you when no one's looking? If you still don't have the answer, that's why you feel lost. It's time to stop chasing external recognition, because it was never something you could control. It's time to look in the mirror and tell yourself, I am enough. I have lived. I have tried. And I don't need anyone to validate that. When you can do this, you'll start to feel a kind of peace no one can take from you. A kind of freedom that doesn't need applause, doesn't need approval, doesn't need sympathetic looks or admiration. You don't need to be understood. You need to understand yourself. And that's the doorway to your final chapter. The one where you no longer live according to anyone else's script. The next part, choosing yourself, will be the heavy-hitting conclusion and the final shift. From a life spent giving to a life finally lived for you. You used to think putting yourself first was selfish. You were taught to live for others, to think of others, to prioritize others so much that you forgot. You're a human being too, someone who also needs care. You swallowed what you wanted. You set aside personal dreams. You endured, stayed patient, stayed quiet, just to keep everything around you at peace. And you were proud of that. But then you realized sacrifice didn't make you happier. It just made you disappear faster from your own life. Choosing yourself doesn't mean turning your back on everyone else. It simply means you stop turning your back on yourself. This is the final chapter of your life. No one else will live it for you. And if you don't start living honestly from this moment on, you'll end this life exhausted and full of regret. You'll look back and see a life full of duty, but empty of joy. Surrounded by loved ones, but missing yourself. You can't keep giving if you're already depleted. No one benefits from you being burnt out, depressed, or lost, not even the people you love most. If you want to be someone's rock, you have to be standing strong. If you want to inspire others, you have to live a life that inspires. No one needs your sacrifice. They need you to be real. Be decisive. Clean out your inner world like you would an old room. Throw away what no longer serves you. Old roles, outdated beliefs, forced expectations, relationships that drag you down. Keep what keeps you alive. Passion, small habits, your private space, a piece of music, a book, a quiet morning. These things cost almost nothing, but they might save the rest of your life. Choosing yourself isn't a loud declaration. It's a series of small actions, refusing what no longer fits, speaking your truth, listening to your body when it needs rest, and listening to your soul when it needs stillness. You've lived a life others respected, but now is not the time to seek respect. Now is the time to show yourself respect. Not for anyone else, not for a role, not out of duty, but because you're still alive and you deserve to live fully. Choosing yourself is the bravest act in old age. Not everyone will do it. But if you do, then even if you only have a few years, a few months, or even weeks left, you can still live deeper, clearer, and truer than in a long life lived in confusion. You can't rewind time, but you can decide how you'll live the rest of it. Don't live like a ghost in the very house you built. Don't wait for someone to give you permission to live, to love, or to be yourself. No one owes you that, and you don't owe anyone a reason for choosing you. Old age isn't the blurry ending. It's your chance to cut all ties, drop every performance, and live in the most powerful simplicity. To be yourself, for yourself. When you let go of expectations, validation, and control, you begin to taste freedom. No one will remember you forever, but you will have to live with how you lived. So live the rest of your life in a way that earns your own respect. You don't need to be understood, you don't need to be applauded, you just need to have no regrets. Choose yourself, right now or never. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.